You're watching Consulting Logistics, presented by Aborn & Company. I'm your host, Kyle MacNaught. Thanks for checking us out. Now, back in March of this year, I got the opportunity to talk to Anthony Petitte of TruckPark about his solution for something every over-the-road trucker has to deal with: parking. Well, since our interview, TruckPark has been booming, and I just had to get Anthony on the show again to give an update. But this time, we wanted to include Joshua Walls, the COO and co-founder of TruckPark. In this conversation, we're going to discuss the state of the industry, what TruckPark has been, what the update for them has been, and then some future plans and some exciting products. So I'm going to bring them on. Joshua, Anthony, how's it going?
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having us on the show.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. I know we were talking a little beforehand, so fun stuff. You guys, I mean, even for you, Anthony, I know when we talked the first time, you were in Chicago, but now you're all the way down in Arkansas. You guys are going crazy right now, huh?
Yeah, it's been an interesting move, but it's great down here. I love it here so far in Bentonville, and everybody's trying to turn me into a Razorback.
Might as well. Big Ten's canceled, so you can't cheer for anything you're in Chicago anymore. But anyways, Anthony, we already talked to you, so I want to talk to Joshua. Joshua, I know Anthony's story of how TruckPark, or how he kind of got involved in TruckPark, but for the audience, tell them a little bit about yourself. Tell them how you what your role in logistics been, and how you kind of helped co-found TruckPark.
Absolutely. So I have an older brother. His name is Samuel. And he's been driving trucks for over 13 years now. And I just always had a level of respect for his profession in that industry. But unfortunately, there was times he would say, "Joshua, can you come meet me? My truck just broke down. And Joshua, you know what? I need help right now." And he always would talk about the lack of parking and how it was hard for him to find parking. And so when I met Anthony had a similar story with his late uncle, Sammy. And so we decided that we wanted to bring to market a solution to help solve the parking problem, being able to really connect drivers to yards. And so my brother, his stories, this is really led about from a place of passion and conviction with Anthony and I. We wanted to make sure that we can hear, our family's pain points, but we know it's just not limited there. We wanted to make sure that we can bring a product to the market so all drivers across the country would be able to benefit from it.
It's got to be I just think back to conversations I have with my brother, and so he's a pilot for the Air Force. He doesn't complain. He complains about the littlest things. You kind of get to hear the actual issues that you would think a pilot would do. So you probably had the exact same experience. I mean, if your brother's complaining about parking, it had to be something he really hated, huh?
Absolutely. Because let's think about it. With the hours of service, they're driving all day. The last thing that they should think about is where to park. And unfortunately, that question is always there for them. So Anthony and I really had a vision to make sure that we could create a better driver experience. And by doing so, offering an app where drivers can make their reservation in real time, and that spot is guaranteed. So yes, I've heard all of the stories on the side of the road at times when he was afraid and when he just needed help. But I know that was an echo for a large community of drivers, and Anthony had already done an outstanding job building the infrastructure in Chicago with the yards. And so it was just about us collaborating, being able to look at operationally how we can scale, get to supply, build those relationships, and then really just complement what Anthony had put together already.
But at the same time, as we know, listeners of the show have heard the TruckPark thing. I mean, it's been a really cool journey. But talk a little bit, we'll move on to kind of what you guys are doing next, but talk a little bit about how nice it is to kind of have that passion, right? You hear a lot of times of working for a nonprofit's great because kind of what you believe in, what you're working in. But this is a really kind of cool passion because it really hits close to home of why you're doing this.
It does. And so Anthony and I, we've always been led by passion. And one attribute of that is really focusing on the driver experience. We had a call about 3 months ago. A driver made a reservation in Florida, and he was so excited. At the last minute, he had to find parking, so he downloaded our app. We made sure in the very beginning that the app was user-friendly. We didn't want to bombard the app with unnecessary buttons. So the driver called. He said, "Joshua, look, I was able to make the reservation in Florida. I'm so excited. The experience was great. The yard was secure. And most importantly, I didn't violate any hours of service. And so it's those testimonies right there that Anthony and I get excited about, because we think about the first day at Panera in Skokie, Illinois, when we sat down and kind of carved out the business plan. We woke up tired, yawning, grabbed us some coffee and some bagels, and we just started, sketching it out, what it looks like, and continuously modifying it. But when you accelerate that and you hear the testimony from that driver, we can't help but to take a step back and say, yeah, this is worth it. If one driver calls and say that they had a great experience, it's worth it for us.
Especially in Florida. I'm a Florida man. I know how crazy them highways can be. You got gators that will climb up into the damn truck. Right. You can provide parking at a safe location. They got to be pumped.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about the state of the industry, because the last time we did talk was kind of right before you had that. And I mean, while we're not struggling as much as we used to kind of like get toilet paper, there is a capacity crunch going on in trucking, at least from the shipper's point of view. Companies are ramping back up and we're seeing rates skyrocket from our side. What's the current state of the industry for truckers, Anthony? Like, what are you guys experiencing? What are you hearing from your guys?
Yeah, I would definitely say that because of COVID, things have ramped up for the entire industry, really. Of course, as you're saying, shippers, spot rates, rate per miles are higher than it's been in a very long time. And I really do think it's because of the pandemic. I think there's just more things to haul right now, especially on the medical side, right? So truckers are constantly hauling medical products to and from hospitals, to and from distribution facilities. I think Walmart's doing a big part in the healthcare system, and there are a lot of Walmart drivers on the road right now. Therefore, more drivers on the road, more drivers are looking for parking. So I think we're also seeing that really big ramp up, and we've seen it. I think last time we had a conversation, I was telling you about how COVID has been kind of a booster for us, so to speak. And not that I'm trying to give light to COVID, or I'm trying to be positive about it. I mean, it's a very scary pandemic, but at the same thing, in terms of transportation, we've seen higher OTVI indexes than we have in 2 years. So it's kind of an interesting economic cycle here, but it is benefiting the trucking industry nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we were seeing a ton of that stuff. But like, I know another thing that we were talking about, especially in the industry, was that these truckers, I mean, unfortunately, they're going to the locations where things are closed, like those everyday conveniences that you've kind of grown accustomed to. When we were talking in March, one of the things you guys did was partnering with telehealth and kind of being able for a trucker to have their symptoms checked. Are we still seeing that stuff, or what are you guys experiencing kind of within that kind of industry? Has the experience for a trucker changed because of COVID, or is it still kind of like they don't kind of know what they're doing?
The experience for the driver has changed. I mean, we talk to drivers all the time. Either they call us or we call them, or we meet with them, and they've expressed many times that they'll go to a truck stop, for example, and while they're at the truck stop, they typically pre-COVID would go to the truck stop, find a parking space, do their laundry, take a shower, rest for a bit. Now it's all changed, right? The truck stops are setting up different parameters of what you can do and what you can't do. So their life is kind of in a bundle right now. It's getting in the truck stop, okay, finding a parking spot's hard because some of the spots are limited. Then having to use the showers, I even heard there's a system to it in some locations. They're trying to go in there and clean every time a driver takes a shower and leaves the shower. Same way with the laundry. I think it's just it's a difficult process, and it's been different. I think that's, to answer your question, I think there's a struggle there, and I think there's other things too. I think with parking, pre-COVID, a driver may have had a spot in a particular area where he or she knew more that spot is going to be okay and you could park there and there's not going to be any cargo issues or law enforcement issues. With COVID, maybe that spot's gone now. So now with parking, it's like, where do I go? How do I find a secure location? And I think also, just to add one last thing, with the pandemic has created, and I wouldn't say it's just a pandemic, but there are some political things going on right now in the United States. And This has drove a lot of the looters and a lot of things to happen, unfortunately, for drivers. And as Joshua alluded to earlier, he was talking about a driver that really had a great experience with us. But that same driver, he parked in a location actually in Florida, outside of Miami, because he was actually scared. He was scared that his truck was going to get broken into. So it's a change of lifestyle for these drivers.
Yeah, and Anthony brings up some great points. And we know and recognize and have heard testimonies from drivers that their lifestyle has changed, and we recognize that. That's why we were always committed to making sure that the partnerships that we create across the country with operators, that they meet a certain threshold in terms of security and also the amenities that are offered at each location. When a driver arrives to a location, we want to make sure, obviously, that it's safe and secure, chief among the attributes that they offer. But then we always encourage, looking at that location, providing the best experience. So do they offer a shower? Is there a truck repair maintenance shop on site? Do they offer food? Some of these things that we take for granted, and it changes the livelihood of drivers when they're not able to conveniently go to that store, but when they can go somewhere, park, and have direct access to amenities in a secure environment, we believe that offers them the best experience right now in a state of uncertainty. So that's our focus. And Anthony and I, we're very passionate about the security at the locations and the experience that drivers will have at our location. So we never want to digress or deviate from that. That's always been our core focus and mission, just to make sure that drivers can receive exemplary experience. And we can learn and hear, absorb what they're talking about and how we anticipate their needs.
How important, and this kind of strikes me, sticking with that kind of Florida thing, but you talk about easy use. How important is communication now more than ever? I mean, we were talking before this about how complicated it is here in Massachusetts to kind of know what the regulations and the guidelines are. How important is it for you guys, or how important are you seeing truckers? What value are they putting on honest, open, and quick communication? Or do they kind of, are the dispatch and they're kind of getting set up this stuff? Like how much information do they have? Or is that something that you guys aren't really experiencing too much of right now?
Yeah, I can answer that question. So the communication has always been, I think, in my opinion, it's been tough for the drivers. A lot of the companies that they work for say, well, we don't really have a solution for you to go, for example, go find parking. There's kind of like a communication barrier, and the drivers now have to kind of take that burden. And the drivers are the ones that are out of a 14-hour day or 13 hours, they're trying to go pick up and drop off loads. And then at the last hour, they're searching for parking. Because that was the statistic that we talked about 4 months ago. Right. So that last hour is kind of like a communication barrier, right? Because now the driver goes, well, I don't know where to go. I just dropped off my last load. I just left the shipper. Where do I go park? And sometimes they'll ask the shipper, and the shipper goes, well, all I know is that there is a pilot flying J down the street. But see that communication barrier? Now the problem is the driver gets to that pilot flying J. There's no spots available because now it's after 6 o'clock, and that time it's completely occupied. Now where do they go? Right. And it's an issue. So right. TruckPark, ourselves, Joshua and I, our whole team, and by the way, we have a fantastic team, and we've just been doing our due diligence on this communication barrier, and we've in fact created a solution for it, where now the dispatcher, the fleet manager, and the whoever is managing the fleet, so to speak, or the drivers, can have better communication with them. They can either make reservations for these drivers, and on top of that, they can route plan for the driver more efficiently. So we've looked at the communication barrier, and now we're trying to solve it, parking space by parking space.
That's going to be vital, because I could just see, right, like you're in this world of unknown, like nothing, no one kind of knows what's happening. Kind of every day is kind of a new challenge, and you're kind of accepting this stuff. As a new parent, I know what every day of a new challenge feels like, but it's got to be kind of super. That's like scary is probably the best word for it, but you just don't really know what's going to happen. So communication is so vital, and I love that you kind of start talking about some of the stuff you're doing. So let's talk about that, because I've seen you guys everywhere now. From our last talk in March, I am seeing a lot of movement. So let's talk about what you guys have been up to this summer. What's been going on? What have you guys been doing since we last talked?
Well, we've done a lot. We're trying to get everywhere. To be honest, I think, we just, for me at least, and I'll be frank, I try to knock on every door. I try to, in terms of marketing, and I do have 6 years additional marketing. Maybe that's kind of the help that I get.
It could be.
I'm out there. It's funny. My wife says I'm kind of more of an introvert, but I think in business, I'm an extrovert. And I say that because I really am. I'm trying to knock on every door. I want to get on every show I can. I want people to know who we are, but it's not because Anthony wants a spotlight, not because I want fame. It's certainly not for Joshua as well. But we want to get out there. We want to tell our story, and we want to really help drivers. It's been like that since the very beginning. And I always tie that back. I think 4 months ago, I kept saying empower. I kept using that word. And it's a word that we use often in TruckPark, but it's a word that we want to acknowledge, and we never want to let go. We don't want to be too big and forget who we're really helping. And so I think that's why you see so much of us, because we're always knocking on the door and saying, hey, let me talk a little bit about how we're helping drivers. Let us tell you a little bit about our solutions. We really want to be that huge ad out there and saying that TruckPark helps truck drivers. And so I think that's why you really see us.
And also, I think sorry to jump on, but it's been your partnerships. I mean, that's been the big thing I've been seeing, because when we first talked, you definitely saw the value of integration. We talked a lot about that, but talk about some of the partnerships, Joshua, that you guys brought on kind of for this kind of past couple of months now.
Absolutely. And I just wanted to kind of echo some of the things that Anthony left off with. Just being in this unique situation right now with TruckPark, Anthony and I, we're just blessed that we can have an opportunity to do what we're passionate about, to solve a problem that started with listening to testimonies in our family. So we acknowledge that our partnerships have grown exponentially within the last year and a half. On the supply side, we have partnered with companies that provide off-airport parking, so prime real estate for drivers. Drivers have always communicated to Anthony and I that ideally they would like to be no more than 2 miles off of a major expressway or corridor. And so right now, obviously that, our economy is shaped a little differently. There's extra real estate in certain pockets and desirably more for drivers. So we've made those partnerships on the supply side, and we're growing. Right now we have over 130 locations, north of 4,500 spaces, and we're going to continue this growth. But to your point about the integrations, we always went to that bridge connecting the demand to the supply. So we've made partnerships with some of the largest load board in the country. Also partnerships where we could integrate our technology in their environment so drivers can have direct access to our app, to our solution. The end goal is a better experience for the driver if they're currently using a tablet or iPad, and all of a sudden they can just click on TruckPark app. It takes them directly to our location. And so we think about how to mitigate unnecessary steps for the driver. Drivers have on average about 7 to 10 truck productivity tool apps that they have access to. So we want to make sure that when we do an integration, it's a smart integration. It's an integration that thinks about the drivers first, because that's the important thing. And how do you create a better experience for the drivers?
Yeah, that's the part that I love. I love hearing about that, because a lot of times you find it's like, we've got the greatest idea in the world. We're going to put it out there, but they're not thinking of what the user experience is like. And it sounds like it's something you guys really are focused on, because at the end of the day, it is a passion. It is a family story. I mean, that you guys are telling that stuff. What about, talk a little bit about, if you can, talk a little bit about DAT and how that partnership kind of came about, and how's that kind of helping out with everything?
Yeah, that partnership was kind of like a perfect partnership from the very beginning. We actually met a lot of the DAT folks at GATS 2019, and we actually met them through a friend. They actually have him on their application as well. He's from Hotels for Truckers, and so that's kind of how we started this relationship with them. Nonetheless, we started having conversations and started talking about how we could do a partnership. Then, of course, we decided that an integration would be the best pathway to success. And as Joshua alluded to, it's all about how we can create a better experience. And so how do we do that? Well, the driver can continue being in their ecosystem. They can book a load on DAT platform. And then if they want, and of course it's always an option, they can make a guaranteed parking reservation. And so that is what we did with DAT. But going a little bit deeper is we started looking at analytics too. What are some of these behaviors the drivers are having? Are they going to shippers? Are they staying at shippers? Are they detained at shippers? For how long are they detained? And then we take that data and we look at it a little bit deeper. We aggregate it. We say, okay, well, they're detained for 2 hours. Well, we're going to try to lock up parking facilities nearby so that once they book their load, once they pick up or drop off their load, then they can find a parking space. So that's how we're doing our it's creating a little bit different of a relationship with DAT, but it's creating a better pathway to success.
Yeah. No, that's like, I'm thinking about that, like the smart data right there. I mean, in theory, if you're a shipper, you want to have because if the truckers, the carriers are coming in and they understand hey, this is how long the stuff is. They can start planning it out. I mean, it's just information you're giving them, but it's fascinating to hear you guys are using that kind of data analytics, kind of smart approach to all this type of stuff. I know one thing that I'm seeing a lot of is you guys are really expanding how you're going. How are you guys doing? Like you talk about trying to keep the quality of service level at these trucking parking spots and all that type of stuff. How do you guys monitor that? Kind of how is it working remotely? Is it kind of jumping on? Like how are you guys vetting these places?
So before we start our partnerships, we share about our story with the operators and they talk about their locations. We make sure that the security is at the forefront of our conversation because we pride ourselves, obviously, as I shared earlier, is making sure that each yard is secure, whether it's 24-hour camera surveillance, well lit, or gate code access. We look at that first and foremost. And then we look at the amenities that they offer, and we talk about those amenities. The operators are so passionate also about being able to be an agent for change and offering and delivering a great experience for the driver as well. They take pride at each location, what they can offer, and we just think it's great. We see it being, something that's contagious for them because they recognize that when a driver arrives to their location, it's all about their experience.
I don't know why I asked the question. It's just something I've been finding fascinating, kind of hearing more of like remote, just the way people are kind of figuring this out, right? If we can't travel to these locations, we can't put a physical eye on like what this is looking like. How are we going to find that type of stuff out? But I love that idea of just starting out with like, at the end of the day, you are showing here's what's like full transparency. This is why we care about this. This is where we have this extra passion. So we want you to have that passion if you're going to say you're a safe and secure parking spot for our users.
Yes. And one key benefit of being completely transparent on our platform is that drivers, before they make the reservation, they can see all of the amenities offered, the security thresholds. They can see that before they make the reservation. They can see the adjacencies, how far they can feel up, or what's offered at that location. We felt like in our environment, if they could be informed before they make the reservation, just takes a lot of stress away and wondering where can they go fill up next, or can they go grab a bite to eat. So it's great that on our app they can, and we have many locations they can choose from, and that offer a variety of different attributes and amenities. But before they make their reservation, they can see what's offered at that location.
That's fascinating because you wouldn't think, at least like. You wouldn't think that they I guess in the business world, right? A truck driver, you don't understand, as someone who has kind of zero connection with that, you wouldn't think that like they're going to want the same type of experience that I would if I'm visiting a city and booking a hotel. Like that's so interesting to hear. Man, there's so much fun. Let's talk about the future. Let's talk about where you guys are kind of heading. What's next for TruckPark? What's kind of some stuff you guys, maybe a little sneak peeks about what's kind of where the next partnership or the next integration is kind of going?
So we do have other products in the incubator and some exciting products that we probably shouldn't expound on right now, but we're working through them. But just a little suspense there. But it's really tied back to the driver, and the driver's going to love it. And so we pride ourselves on first listening, right, to the driver, learning, anticipating their needs. So you listen to the driver, and you learn from them and you say, well, what can we bring to market that can solve a problem based on their feedback? So that's what we're doing right now. We're just trying to listen to the drivers and really bring a very solution-oriented products and service to the market.
What about your ancillary kind of clients or contacts, like the shippers, the 3PLs, those guys? I mean, if you guys are working data, is there some interesting stuff you're kind of thinking about or percolating about that you could possibly be bringing to that group to kind of help them out? Or am I getting a little too in the weeds with everything?
That's actually a
Sorry.
No, we of course we're focused on the drivers, but we are also focused on the transportation industry. I guess the only teaser that I can really give is that we are coming out with a product that's going to take care of the entire industry. I don't know how to explain it without giving it away, but it's going to take care of the carriers, the shippers, the 3PLs, the drivers, everybody in that entire ecosystem. And I wish I could just give it away, but I can't. I have to hold myself back and restrain myself. But we are coming up. We have a series of products, actually, as Joshua alluded to. In fact, we have 3. So I'll keep the suspense there. We have 3 new products. They're coming.
Oh man, I can't wait to hear this stuff. I mean, just from when we first talked, Josh or Anthony, to now, it's ridiculous. I can't imagine what it's going to be like in a couple more. 2021 is going to be crazy for y'all. Like, it's going to be nuts. Anyone who's interested, where should they go? Where should they kind of be paying attention to? How do they kind of stay up to date with what TruckPark's offering? If they're truckers, it's clearly download the app, all that type of stuff. But kind of everyone else, kind of what should they be doing? And like, how do they start to think about how they could possibly, especially like shippers, some of the businesses, kind of those people, how do they kind of utilize the awesome services that you guys provide to their carriers?
Drivers can go to the Android store, the App Store, to find our app and download it. Those who are looking to partner on the demand or supply side, please go to truckpark.com. There you would find different partnerships that we forged within the last 3 years. You will find news articles about what we've been able to do in the market and how we're scaling over the next year and a half. So that's where you can find more information about TruckPark, truckpark.com. And we're just excited for the next call to talk about the products that are right now in suspense.
Yeah, hopefully we're not talking about this pandemic as much next call. But yeah, guys, this is so much fun. I love talking to you guys. TruckPark's, you guys are out there. You're thinking differently. It's awesome just to hear kind of where you guys are at, knowing the story, knowing the passion of all this stuff. Joshua, Anthony, I can't thank you guys enough for jumping on again to this show. And I can't wait for the next time we talk, because maybe you'll finally tell me some of this stuff.
Thank you so much.
Either. Thank you for having us on.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So blessed.
Absolutely. Have a great day, guys.
You as well.
You too.
And that's our show. Have you checked out TruckPark? Let us know in the comments section, and we'll be sure to kind of talk back and forth. In the meantime, subscribe and share our show. Thanks for watching Consulting Logistics. I'm Kyle MacNaught. Rock and roll.